Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Guillotte, you're familiar with the Joint Reserve Base at Belle Chase in Louisiana?
Yes, sir, I am.
They house the 159th Fighter Wing. They do a hell of a job defending our border at the coast. They work together, of course, with their partners, and they fly F-15Cs. You're familiar?
Sir, I'm very familiar.
Yes, sir. I would imagine you are. I've been advised that the Air Force plans to send F-15EXs to the Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, and my sources state that Okinawa would have difficulty supporting some of these new aircraft, and in defense of our homeland, which is the subject of today's hearing primarily. It would seem to a reasonable American that perhaps we should deploy these F-15EXs to the 159th Fighter Wing to defend our coast, to replace these older craft, as opposed to sending them to Japan. And would you potentially meet with this committee to discuss that? Or what are your thoughts on that, what you can discuss in this setting?
Sir, I would be glad to meet with the committee and discuss the air defense needs. The F-15C, although old, is still unmatched in air-to-air combat, and it does a great job, but as you mentioned, being old, maintenance problems, reliability problems, and fatigue on the aircraft is setting in. I would love to see all of our F-15 units replaced with EX.
So respectfully, General, if the old aircraft are all cool, why do we need new ones?
Well, as I mentioned, the maintenance...
New ones are newer and better, right?
The new ones are better. I would like to see them replaced with EX.
So to defend our coast, regular Americans might expect that we might use the best. I'm just putting this out there. We might use the best and most modern aircraft to defend the Gulf of America and to patrol the Gulf of America, as opposed to sending them overseas. So all I'm asking respectfully, sir, is that we have that conversation and we can engage in that conversation in another setting. Will you commit to that, to me and my office and to this committee?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I want to make sure I was clear. I would love to have the F-15EX.
Well, that's a real good answer. Yep. We're going to stop there on the F-15s because I want them in Louisiana. I think it's a real good idea. You mentioned earlier, General, regarding the northern trajectory. My colleagues across the aisle are quite upset about corrective actions that the executive branch is taking regarding our relations with our allies and adversaries alike across the world. You mentioned the northern trajectory. It was brought up as a concern. So when you describe the northern trajectory, you're talking about tracking ICBMs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and cruise missiles.
Okay. So ICBMs and cruise missiles. So the American technologies on sea-based and land-based and space-based technologies that track these launches, the launch of a cruise missile or an intercontinental ballistic missile from a northern trajectory, from that an adversary would most likely use to make a fast and effective approach to the United States. Can we track that with Canada or not? Without Canada or not?
We can do the detection and the mid-course tracking, depending on the route. There's some routes where we could track it without Canada. Others, if it goes straight, in the 12 o'clock position, we would need Canadian assets.
So the Canadian assets that you're describing, would you clarify the way those joint operations work when it comes to tracking the ICBM? Does this not transcend trade negotiations, and we're talking about an incoming nuclear missile?
For ICBMs, the capabilities are all United States. Canada has a policy that they don't conduct ballistic missile defense. For the cruise missiles, we would rely on some of the radars and the fighters that Canada has, depending on the route of the cruise missile.
So you've worked with our Canadian allies for a long time, correct, General?
Yes, I have, sir.
Can you envision any scenario, under any conditions, where there would be an incoming cruise missile, ICBM, detected by our Canadian allies, or by American tech, that we would not share that with Canada and vice versa?
Gentleman's time's expired. Have to answer that for the record. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.